per se. Probably the most common discounting program we see at many clubs is typically in the golf pro shop, where there's what's called a buyer's program, where members pay a fee, and that allows them to get the products in the golf pro shop, typically at like 15 or 20% above cost there if they're part of that particular program. Occasionally we see some relationship with different vendors, but I wouldn't say it's widespread at clubs at all. But that definitely could be something to explore during these bad economic times here.
I'm just curious about the diminishing wait list, and I'm curious as to what's driving that. Is part of it that maybe there's a demographic moving through the club where we're having more people leaving and we're chewing up the wait list as a result of that, or is it competition based or just less demand? Do you have a sense of why that wait list is diminishing?
Yeah, that's a great question. The attrition rate is slightly higher than what it's been in the past, but not significantly. Really the problem is there's less candidates applying for membership there. So it's really the demand factor, which is good and bad. I mean, if it was a dissatisfaction problem, I say, hey, well, you can nip this in the butt by resolving these particular issues. So there's not some underlying dissatisfaction area. I think that this is, what the club has not done is, there are a lot of clubs out there that are being very aggressive in their membership development program, to the point where you're seeing ads in golf magazines. You're probably getting direct mail pieces sent to homes. I mean, there are a lot of clubs doing what I kind of consider almost jeopardizing the concept of being an exclusive private club, but a lot of clubs are doing that. The Derrick hasn't done a lot. Now, I think the Derrick was fairly aggressive in its membership development about 10 years ago, but because the waiting list has been so high, you've kind of stopped doing those things because if your waiting list is 3 years or 2 years to get into the club, trying to recruit additional individuals, it was felt just wasn't needed, and plus many individuals may not want to go on the waiting list. So now I think, and that's also good news, since the club hasn't been doing a lot of membership development activities. My personal feeling is once it starts doing some of the things that are recommended in the plan, that the club will be able to do it. Now, if the club had been doing it and then the numbers continuing to drop, I would be really concerned about that. So I'm thinking that demand hopefully will pick up once the membership development activities are implemented.
I want to talk to you about what you've seen in the clubs that you've done surveys for on legacy. We've changed our legacy about 3 times since I've been a member here. Our children have gone from 80% discounted to 50%, et cetera, et cetera. So that it's almost not affordable for them to be members here. When I joined the club 20-some years ago, it was a place to be for our children going forward. Yet we have changed this going forward to make it very expensive for our children to be here. And I just want to know, what have you seen in your surveys across Canada, and are we in tune with that? Because I think that we're being shortchanged here in the Derrick Club, because now our kids to join here is over $8,000. We've been here for 20 years. They should be discounted 20, 30, or they should be discounted 80%. We've been here supporting the club, but our kids can't afford to join here. What are you seeing across Canada?
That's a good question. Legacy membership is, I think, a very critical part of many clubs, especially in terms of getting those multi-generation of families in the club. There's, one of the reasons a lot of members are proud to be members at the club is because not only their children, but hopefully their grandchildren will become members as well there, and that your children will know children of other members and so forth. But I will have to tell you this, that the average discount is typically around 50% at clubs across Canada. 50%. 50, yes. But the key thing is not even the discount. The key thing is stretching the payments over an extended period of time. so that you can make it very affordable. But the key thing also is that to start those payments as soon as the child becomes a legacy member. A lot of times some clubs, the problem with their legacy membership is where the person doesn't have to pay it except for like 2 or 3 years before they have to before they become a full member. And sometimes there may be a particular amount due at the end of that period. So the key thing is stretch the payments over time and start it right away so that there's no jump or at a certain period where the legacy member has to pay an extended amount there. So, the amount and the stretching of the payments is the most critical factor for the legacy there.
And I'm wondering if the information that you gathered, which would have been in behind the survey, sort of a two-part question, whether or not there was any correlation in the decline, particularly in the golf wait list, to the increase in transfer fees that has occurred over the number of years, whether there's any track or correlation between that and the declining numbers. And secondly, whether or not there is an equivalent decline in the Edmonton or Alberta region that you could pull out of the information you have from your Canada database.
Okay, good questions. First of all, the number on the wait list is not just, when the fees were increased, we looked at that, but if you look over the last 10 years, and I didn't have that data, I only had from 2008 on, that the number of the wait list was pretty much the same. I mean, it fluctuated up and down. It's just been the last couple of years where it's really dropped, and that's not been because of the increase in the price there. So, in my opinion, it's not the increase in the price. Actually, the province of Alberta has been least affected in comparison to the other provinces over the last 2 years of the economic downturn. And specifically about trying to measure the demand in Alberta, I think because there's been a tremendous increase in the number of competitors, and not only private but public as well. And then I think finally last year, the economic downturn has finally kind of caught up with Alberta. I think that if you were in Ontario or if you were in Manitoba and some of the other provinces, you would have seen the downturn that you've had 2 to 3 years earlier. And so it's finally catching up. I think you've just been spared. Well, spared may not be the right word, but it's just come a lot later. But I think, once again, that if the club, in any of your businesses, when you reach a particular growth, a mature stage in your product life cycle, the market share is not growing tremendously. So if you want to increase your market share and the market share is not growing, what do you have to do? You have to steal or take market share away from somebody else. And that involves membership development activities. Right now, the club hasn't had to do it because it was in a growth stage and there was just more and more demand, more and more members coming in. It's just not that way right now. Now, maybe if the price of crude oil goes up significantly, things may be rosy and you may not have this problem a couple of years from now. But we can't make that assumption. I think the club needs to be making the assumption that there's going to be not a huge increase in demand and that we have to go after individuals that are out there. And if that requires, I hate to use the word stealing, but bottom line is that's kind of what it is.
Knowing the survey that you did at the Derrick Club, knowing the competition that we have coming up in the next couple of years, do you feel that we're priced right, i.e. $5,000 for a social membership, X number of dollars for fitness, X numbers of dollars for golf? Are we doing the right thing? Summarize it, close it off, please. Thank you.
Okay. All right. If everybody promises to be last question, I'll make it short and say no. Pricing is pricing is an interesting question, and you have to look at a number of different factors. What we did to look at your pricing was a number of things. One is, what is your competition doing? I mean, because especially when you have what I call a transient market, and you've had a huge transient market. I mean, the influx of individuals in Alberta over the last decade is huge. So these aren't individuals who grew up here that are going to know the Derrick Club, going to know, the Edmonton Country Club, and so forth and so on. So they're going to be probably shopping around because they didn't grow up here knowing the reputation of a club or whatever it is. So you need to be, so when we looked at the pricing, actually the Derrick, considering the position that you want to be, was probably priced a little bit lower than what it should be. It wasn't overpriced. But I'm not saying that you should increase your prices, but you're not overpriced in the market compared to your competition. The second thing we look at is on the survey, did you say that pricing was too high or too bad? Pricing looked pretty good in terms of the different questions that we had. The third factor is what I do is I look at the demographics in the postal codes immediately around the club, plus the postal codes that most of your members lived in. And we looked at the postal codes that all of the members lived in. We looked at the postal codes that members who joined within the last 3 years lived in. And we did an analysis of what the household income is, how many professionals, what was the average price of the house in that area, and so forth. And you know what? We're in most of your members come from very wealthy neighborhoods that the household income and other factors said that the pricing that you had seemed to be pretty good. So, but nonetheless, so my interpretation, pricing's pretty good. But I have to tell you, the key thing in terms of making the transfer fee to be as least perceived as being a problem is to stretch those payments, not only for legacy, but to stretch it out for everybody over an extended period of time. Because most individuals don't want to dip into their investments in order to pay for a club membership. And so my recommendation is to stretch those payments over time in order to make it most affordable.